Hi everybody, this is the Baseball Height, the amazing, spectacular, terrific, the great one, the People's Champion, your host, the Hut, and of course subscribe to this channel, and like this video, and the comments in the comment section. So there's so many great things to talk about, but when these things happen, there's always something to talk about, and we'll get into it in a minute. A couple of things. I'll have a video tomorrow on Thursday on Dominic Smith. I didn't think I'd be doing a video like this. Okay, but you need to keep it where it is. You want to know what's going on with Dom? I'll tell you. I'll let you know. And we might have a laugh or two at his expense, by the way. Also, I would mention this. New York Mets are now pulling away from being the best team in New York City. Mets are now one game better than the New York Yankees, if not two games I think, right? They're 2 games better than the Yankees now. Those Yankees lost again to the Mariners. They're going down the drain, folks. This is the Yankees of old, how we've seen them over the last 3 or 4 years. I wonder who's going to be at fault this time. Well, maybe it should have been the GM's fault for not trading for Luis Castillo. But he doesn't hit for them. He's just a pitcher. Well, here we go. So the Mets had a very interesting deadline. I was very fair in how I graded them. I said C- to a D+. Most of everybody else pretty much destroyed the Mets trade deadline acquisitions, which included Daniel Vogelbach, Daniel Ruff, and Tyler Naquin. Now these guys have been sort of on bad teams. They've been guys that have sort of been role players. Darin Ruf was on a very good team last year on the Giants. They won 107 games. Went to the postseason. Daniel Vogelbach has really been on a lot of bad teams. He was on the Pirates this year. And Naquin was on the Reds the last few years. But the one thing about him is he's been on a championship team. He was with the now defunct Cleveland Indians team, now the Guardians. He was on that World Series team in 2016. He came awfully close to winning it. So these guys have had a lot of experience, and they bring stuff here. And I talked about them, that they were not here to sort of be a big splash. The Mets didn't need a big splash. The Mets made big splashes in the offseason when they signed Scherzer, Marte, Escobar, and Canyon. So they didn't have to make any kind of big moves. They just needed to make little moves to have incremental improvement over the season. As you know, the Mets had a black hole in the DH spot, which I think we all kind of knew about, and it was bad. It's a bad situation. Now, between the 3 of these guys, Naquin, Vogelbach, and Ruff, the Mets are, the 3 of them, hitting .348 with 22 RBIs. This is after today's game, with 5 home runs and some doubles sprinkled in. They have done a great job. They're role players. I think the big reason why they've been 15-2 since Vogelbach has been here is they've had production from a position that was a black hole, the DH spot. As you know, for most of the year they had Dom Smith and J.D. Davis, who only produced 3 home runs between the 2 of them, or 4 home runs between the 2 of them. So these guys have actually outproduced them over the last 2 weeks than they have over the last 4 months. Now they are gone. But that's why with trades you got to sort of watch and see how it develops with your team, no matter what team you're on, whatever team you have, especially if it's a championship caliber team. The Met front office has done a very good job identifying players that are going to help them. And Buck knows these guys. He's watched them as a broadcaster for the last few years, so he knows these players when he sees them. Now I would mention still, we do have an issue, which is going to be interesting how they resolve it, is with a lefty in that bullpen. Joely Rodriguez came into the game the other day on Sunday. Pitched great against the Braves. We'll have to monitor that. I know they want to put Peterson in the games late. I don't know if he can handle that. I'm not sure how Tyler McGill can handle late game relief pitching. Don't know that yet, especially with his arm being the way it is. How he's a little shaky physically. But the Mets are doing great. And I would mention this real quickly. the Mets have pretty much gotten away with no production out of the left-handed side of their bullpen. Also, the Mets are one of the teams, I think they're 7th, or between 4th and 7th, with most innings logged by a starter. I mentioned this too. Since Max Scherzer returned on July 5th, the Mets are 26-10 and 14-4 since the All-Star break. So he has brought back stability with the Mets rotation. I think Chris Bassett has been one of these players and one of these guys that has really stabilized as a pitcher in terms of the way he had been pitching. So he had a terrible May, and the June wasn't much better, but he has really stepped up since Scherzer has been back. He's really taking a lot of pressure off himself, obviously, but there's really not much to complain about. But I just want to sort of mention a couple of things. Francisco Lindor has played great. He's tied a Met record for most RBIs by a shortstop. He's going to break the record for most home runs by a shortstop, and it's great to see his defense has stabilized this team for the last 2 years defensively, and it's a big reason why that defense has gotten markedly improved. I did mention that last year, by the way. But, again, about trades, you always want to be able to look at it from a very objective way, these trades. Because I know a lot of people weren't happy, especially with the Ruff trade. They weren't happy about this trade. And I said at the time, this is about October. This is not so much about the Braves. Okay? The Braves will probably make postseason. They're going to be able to beat the Mets. I would mention this before I forget. And this is very important. The way the Braves reacted this weekend, for that 5-game series against the Mets, it really tells you how important Freddie Freeman was to that clubhouse and how he was important on the field. He would not allow any player on his team, like Strider, came out and started complaining after the game about he wasn't getting the calls and the Mets were getting lucky. That never would have happened if Freddie were on that team. Also, Matt Olson, as good as he is, you can pitch to him. And he's not Freddie Freeman. He's a tough out. We all know that as Mets fans. Freddie is a tough out. Mets face the Dodgers. He's the guy I am more afraid of than anybody in that lineup. Because he's not afraid of any pitcher. He has good pitching. I was not impressed with the Braves last week. I thought they were very immature in the series. They were fighting with the Met fans a lot in the stands, showing their fingers, showing how they were, World Series champion. That was last year. So I thought that was very strange. Very strange the way the Braves were acting on the field and how they reacted after the game. I would mention that Dansby Swanson actually was a professional after the game. He said, we didn't play well other than 2 innings. It's the only one. And obviously he played with Freddie. And I guess he might be the next guy in line. I don't even know who. Can anybody answer that question if you're a Braves fan? Who's the leader on the Braves now that Freddie's gone? No, that's not my problem. That's not your problem. And I'm a big fan of that manager, by the way. I don't like him. He got outmanaged a couple of times in the last 8 games the Mets faced the Braves, by the way. This guy, he gets into these games where, did anybody get the feeling that in the doubleheader in the first game, that the Braves seem to be more satisfied with getting Diaz out of that game, that try to kick him out of the second game, than winning this first game? Is it just me? Maybe it's just me. I don't know. Well, let me know what you think about this video. Please subscribe to Baseball Hard. Thank you, and I'll see you later.